Hey everybody, welcome to the Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. On my right, we have Sunny McGaw from Sunny McGaw Marketing. And today we're going to talk a lot about her story, about what she does, and all that good stuff. But for people that don't know you, right, this is their first time listening in, first time ever seeing your face. Who is Sunny and what is it that you do?
Thanks, Ulysses. A bit of background. So I've been very fortunate that most of my adult life, I've been able to work at something that really fires me up. I love marketing and advertising. And so I've been doing that for well over 20 years. And I have been able to work for some of the biggest brands in North America. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy about that. Starbucks, both Coke and Pepsi, and Ford, GM, the Toronto International Film Festival. And I became a creative director in my late 30s, which was pretty cool at the time because only 3% of creative directors were women. Now it's up to 11%. So,
That's good.
Well, we're making some progress.
Yeah.
But one thing that happened, Ulysses, is as I rose up the ranks and I became a creative director and I got higher in my career, and there were so many good things about it. And it looked great on paper. I had a big team. I had big budgets.
Yep.
These great clients. We had award shows. It was pretty glamorous. But as I rose higher, I felt myself getting more disconnected from my purpose
Yeah.
and my values.
Yeah.
So I had an aha moment. I'd love to share it with you. I was working for a snacks company, which will remain unnamed. And I realized that we had someone on our staff who their specific job was to determine when working moms felt the most guilty, because that time of the week was when we could sell them the
Shoot.
crappiest snacks, like the saltiest snacks, the sweetest snacks, the most colorful, bubbly drinks. And that felt like a punch in the gut to me.
Yeah.
I am a mom. And I thought, I'm taking advantage of these working moms who are trying their best and at their most vulnerable states. And when I realized that, I resigned within a week.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So it was pretty immediate then.
It was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It was pretty powerful. And I thought, I don't want to continue living so disconnected from my values. And at that time, I was able to, I had always kind of had a side hustle my whole life.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is something pretty close to my heart.
Right.
So I thought, let's dive in. So the last 10 years or so, I've been able to work in entrepreneurship strictly. So sometimes with startups, sometimes I was a member of a team, and sometimes I've been a founder or a co-founder.
Yeah.
And that's where I find myself working in entrepreneurship today.
Well, that's good, and I think it's a testament to, like you said, your values. And some people will do anything for just a paycheck, but not you. And when you did realize that, hey, I'm feeling disconnected, what portion of you were feeling disconnected? Like, why did you feel like that? Was it simply because you're a mother, or did you want to empower women? What was that change?
Great question. Yes. Well, the maternal part of me, and then just the human part of me.
Yeah.
Just the human part of me. I thought this isn't what I want to do.
It's manipulation.
Yeah. One of the core principles that I live by is make the world a better place every opportunity you get. I wasn't doing that.
Right.
I wasn't participating in that particular role in my life. So and then in terms of women empowerment. So as I mentioned, I've worked in entrepreneurship, and just in recent years, I've thought, let's focus on women, and in particular, who I love to work with, Ulysses, is ambitious women who are in their prime. Now,
Yeah.
This is a term I've coined. It used to be called women who are middle-aged. I reject that. I reject that wholeheartedly. I just don't think it's empowering or pleasant. So I like women in their prime.
Yeah.
That's who I focus on working with today.
And what does that mean, women in their prime?
Well, it means women, I suppose 45 plus.
Yeah.
Yes. But, we're flexible on that. Something really interesting, a Forbes study came out recently that said founders who are 60 years plus are 3 times more likely to be successful with their startups as founders who are under 30.
Oh, wow. And why do you think that is?
Oh, I think it's multifaceted. I was hoping you'd ask me.
Yeah.
But, okay, well, I think, wisdom and experience.
Right.
Obviously, that's a huge thing. For women in particular, a lot of them have been running households. So the typical woman that I work with is somebody who got an education, so went to college, went to university, then worked for a while, and then stopped to raise a family, to run a household. Now think about the qualities of somebody who's running a household. You are multitasking, right?
Yep.
You're patient, you're tenacious, you have grit, you can see a long-term benefit.
Yep.
Good at dealing with short-term pain. So all of these great benefits that come out of that role for a certain time in your life also women at this stage in their life, this is their time.
Yeah.
So women, let's say 45 plus, typically, if they've raised a family, that family needs them a little less than they used to.
True.
Right? And so they've had all this time to think about things and to run this household that's like a small business, and now it's their time. Also, as a bonus, they usually have some money.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus a 25-year-old entrepreneur, they don't have a lot of money typically.
Right.
Or
right.
wisdom.
Yeah. No, that's that makes a lot of sense. You know, and I guess like when they are around that age, do you see that, like, you know, most women are like, oh, you know, I'm 45, I don't want to follow my dreams anymore. Do you find that, or are you finding that, like, okay, now I can start living because my family or my kids are, you know, out of the house? Like, what are you finding? Why is it that they yeah.
No, that's a great question. So the women I work with, the women who want to be founders at 45 plus are ambitious.
Yeah.
Right. So a term I love is BHAG. Have you heard that one? It was
never heard of it.
coined by Jim Collins. So I love to work with women who have a BHAG. That is a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
It's not a medium goal. It's not a mediocre goal.
Right.
It's somebody who has a big goal, a big dream that they want to achieve.
Yeah.
And that's who I like to work with. And those are the people who I find to be quite successful.
Yeah. And how are these women finding you? Because most of the time, right, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they've never started a business before in their life. They're just starting, right? How are they finding you for you to essentially help them out?
That's a great question too. Well, I do have a fairly active role on LinkedIn. I participate in a lot of women in entrepreneurship groups,
Yep.
summits, speaking tours, that type of thing. Women are great communicators and social sharers.
Yeah.
So whereas men speak on average 2,000 words a day, women 6,000 words a day.
Oh, wow.
So when a woman finds something that she's liking,
Yep.
you know, hopefully me, she's going to share it.
That's
so
true.
she has a friend who wants to, hey, I've been thinking about starting something. You know, I'd like to host a podcast myself or write a book. Maybe my name comes up.
Yeah.
Because we are social beings.
And what are you initially helping them out with? Because you do a lot of marketing and basically helping small business owners. But when they hire you or when they're looking to work with you, what is it that you essentially help them do?
Okay, so two things. I focus on marketing
Yep.
and mindset. And I'll tell you the mindset piece because it's a little bit more of a mystery.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, we know that to be a successful founder, you need a bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
You need hopefully you've got a killer business plan. You've got a good team. Even if you're a solopreneur, you've got some team behind you. You have some funding, right? You have some mentorship or some guidance. You can have all of those pieces in spades. But if you don't have a success mindset, you've got nothing. And that's what I realized in working in entrepreneurship for the past 10 or 12 years. So that's what I came up with, this framework I call it the Fab 5 framework of successful entrepreneurs. And that's what I end up speaking about the most and helping with the most. And it comes down to 5 pieces, obviously, the Fab 5. And the first one is have unshakable belief in yourself, have an incredible squad or team around you, have laser focus on your goals, have a bias for action, right? Not just thinking about things, taking action on things.
Yeah.
And the fifth thing, and most important, which ties everything together, is have high, very, very high expectations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, to me, that's a new one because usually when people start out in business at first, like there's kind of low expectations of what they're doing because they just don't know kind of how to start, you know? So when you say have high expectations, what do you mean? Is it high expectations with themselves? Is it high expectations with, you know, the people that they're hiring, or just everything, all the above? How does that look like tangibly?
Okay, so high expectation doesn't mean that you don't take baby steps. Right?
Okay.
Both can be true.
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
have high expectations. It goes back to that BHAG. Goes back to the idea of the big, hairy, audacious goal. And so an exercise I like to do with a client when we start working together is called front page news. So imagine yourself in 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
And the front page of the most esteemed newspaper in this country has you on it. Ulysses. Ulysses has. What does that headline say? You know, change the face of public relations forever.
Right.
Something along those lines. So I get an entrepreneur to sit down with me and say, let's think about your BHAG. What is that? What is that sentence on the front page of the newspaper? What does it say about you?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by setting a high expectation.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there a common theme that you notice with
Well,
with people's expectation of what they want to be?
So I think at this stage with women in their prime, they're quite purpose driven.
Yeah.
Right. So again, back to if you were in your 20s or 30s, yes, you are. You're trying to make a buck. You're trying to pay your mortgage. You're trying to pay off debt.
Yeah.
This stage in people's lives, women's lives, are usually a little bit more purpose driven, which works quite well for their audience, because an audience today is 6 times more likely to buy from a purpose driven business as one that's not purpose driven.
That is so true.
So it's usually about, having an impact, changing the world, leaving a positive legacy behind, something along those lines, a little less self-serving and a little bit more, spread the good to the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when did you notice that transition? Because I agree with you. Like, I think now a lot of people are more purpose-driven, more I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, ideologically.
Yeah. Like, when do you think that started? Because for me, I'm thinking if I was to like nail it down to a certain time, maybe like a year before the pandemic started, I think is when it started to really get, more into like purpose-driven things. And but because you've been in the industry for a while, when did you see the transition happen?
Well, I'm sure that the pandemic played a role. I don't know what that is exactly, except for to say it shook everything up.
Yeah.
Right. It shook everything up. And so we maybe got back a little bit more to grassroots and to what really matters in life. And if you can, have a few close friends that you can communicate with, so that you can, you can't travel, you can't be out in the world, you can't go to work on a regular basis. So what can you do to make your life meaningful?
Yeah.
So certainly that played a role. And then I also just do think that with the age of the entrepreneurs I work with, it's a more purpose-driven age in their life, right? Your first half is over, right? So you have a choice. Do you say, okay, the first half is over, so I'm going to coast?
Yeah.
Or the first half is over, oh my gosh, I've got a whole second half.
Yeah.
Let's make this better than that first half. I've got the wisdom, I've got the learning, got a little bit of money. So that optimism and that positivity goes a long way with the people I work with.
And for the women that you're working with, did it shake everything up even during COVID? Did it stop many women from like continuing to move forward, or was that not an obstacle at all?
Well, I'm sure it was an obstacle. At the time of the pandemic starting, I actually was in a partnership, not with a woman, with a brilliant man, a good friend of mine, Dr. Ivan Joseph. Now, I'll tell you, he has a TED Talk that has 27 million views.
Wow.
That is up there. That is passing Simon Sinek and Brene Brown.
Yeah. Well, you have a TED Talk as well, right?
I do. I do have a TED Talk. Thank you. And I've been a TED host as well. And Ivan and I hosted a TED Talk just before the pandemic started. And we decided to partner up because he was a public speaker, but he wasn't fueling his business or marketing it. And I said, my friend, let's do this together. So we started just before the pandemic. And what happened was, we actually incorporated in January, and then in March the pandemic hit.
Oh wow!
But to be a good entrepreneur, that you've got to pivot.
Yeah.
Right. So that's got to be planning and pivoting. And what we did that worked really well is we pivoted well. So instead of just becoming instantly a virtual speaker, we said, okay, let's take 1 month, train, get the right equipment, something that looks like this, and launch as a virtual speaker. And it was incredibly successful. And I just exited that business a year ago, and it was the best exit of my life.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think it's a testament to be a mother, to be, to exit a company, to also help and empower women, because, I'm noticing, and a common theme from our conversation is, to you, it's not just about the dollar. And that kind of also goes back to the women that you work with. At that age, it's not about the dollar anymore. It's about kind of leaving a purpose and an impact. And you're leading by example, which is great. For most people that, they heard that you have a TED Talk, what's the name of the TED Talk, so that way they can find it if they want to?
The TED Talk is about hard travel builds grit.
Okay.
And in 2017, 2018, my husband and I took our 3 kids, who were not teenagers yet, on a world trip. We backpacked around the world.
Nice.
And we live a pretty nice life in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
And we wanted to not raise entitled kids.
Yeah.
So we took them around the world, and we went to 19 countries, 69,000 kilometers, which is 43,000 miles, and 5 continents over just a year. And the TED Talk was about that trip.
Wow.
And how hard travel built grit in all of us.
Yeah. And how did that you know, shape your kids' like outlook on life?
Okay, well, it remains to be seen because it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
keep you posted. But I think it did the trick. So one thing that they definitely noticed. So out of the 19 countries we went to, 16 were developing nations, what we used to call third world
Yep.
nations. So we saw some things that our kids had never experienced before, nothing close to it. And the two countries that were economically the most challenging, which were Nepal and Cambodia,
Yeah,
our kids definitely noticed these are the happiest people we've ever come across.
yeah,
Right? So that's an incredible lesson for them to learn.
yeah,
And we tried to avoid tourists destinations. So we wanted them to see how people really lived. So we stayed in non-tourist towns, and we
yeah.
shopped at the grocery stores that the people shopped at, or the markets. We traveled like the locals traveled.
That's such a good lesson, I think, you know, and because, you know, some people could hear it initially and superficially think like, oh, well, they just traveled everywhere, went to nice places, stayed at nice hotels, but that's not the case. Like you guys lived like the locals lived,
Yeah.
understood their culture, you know, from what you could while you were there,
Yes.
and your kids were learning along the way. Like
That's
I think
right.
that's beautiful.
Thank
you know?
you. We stayed in 94 different places,
Yeah.
and only 3 of them were hotels.
Wow.
Yes.
Wait, so was it Airbnb? Was
We
it what
stayed
was
in
it?
a ton of Airbnbs
Yeah.
and Verbos and huts,
Yeah.
a treehouse.
Yep.
We took local ferries, hostels. So yeah, we had a tiny budget too. We really forced it to be tough travel. We each had a 7-kilo backpack. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
anyhow, it looks like this.
Yeah.
So we had hand luggage. That was it.
If you don't mind sharing, what was the budget that you guys had?
It was 200 Canadian dollars a day. So that is about
Oh, wow.
150 American dollars a day. That's up for 5 people's lodging, food, and most travel. Not airline tickets, but like day-to-day travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was tight, and
That is tight.
we wanted to make it challenging, right?
Yeah.
That was the
And over the
goal
course
it.
of a year, like,
Mhm.
so that takes a lot of work. That
It did,
does.
and it really it made me a better entrepreneur. That whole planning and pivoting, and the
You learned how to be more resourceful and
resourceful,
Yeah.
patient,
patient.
Yep.
I bet. I bet.
patient, to have faith when things look really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was there were definitely some trying times, and we homeschooled. We
Yeah.
homeschooled the 3 kids while we were traveling. So
Well, that's also another layer, right? That's also pretty difficult.
yeah, we mostly focused on math, and otherwise we thought our kids were getting this incredible life education, and they were. So
Agreed.
we all grew tremendously in that one year, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah. Well, I like that because again, that goes back to your mindset. You teach that to the women entrepreneurs that, you know, hire you and go with you, but then also like you do it yourself. You also kind of work on yourself when you did that year-long travel, right?
Thank you. Yes,
So you're not just you're walking the walk, which is good.
I certainly hope so. I
Yeah.
certainly hope so. There's one big difference I've noticed in society, how we view women in our prime, and I think it's worth talking about. If you can you picture in your mind the TV show, what's it called? The Golden Girls. Are you familiar with that? Okay,
No.
before your time. I
Yeah.
believe it was in the 80s. Anyhow, it was 4 women who lived together, maybe in Florida or something like that. It had Betty White and B. Arthur. But can you picture Sex in the City?
Yes.
Yes, today, Sex in the City today. So those women in Golden Girls and the women in Sex in the City are the same age. The
Okay.
women in Golden Girls were blue-haired. They wore cardigans.
Yeah.
They were old.
Yeah.
The women in Sex in the City, vibrant, right?
Yeah.
Sexy, interesting, so much to offer the world. And I think that is the big change that we're seeing in society, is that society is beginning to recognize that there's so much potential in this group of women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, traditionally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but traditionally from, you know, what other people might have thought is that, like, as you get older, like either the value in the marketplace just kind of declines. And that, yeah, like you're maybe just a mother, or maybe you're just doing a 9 to 5 or things like that.
Mhm.
But, or a lot of the value comes from like the man or the male. But what you're doing is shifting that conversation, number one. And number two, it's just putting more light into the fact that, you know, women in their prime are also more than just mothers, right? Like you mentioned the statistic that they're more likely to succeed in business, which is phenomenal, number one, because a lot of businesses already fail. So yeah, it's a great group of women to kind of cater to and help them out with that.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, I love to just it's really just a tweak of empowerment a lot of the time to say, you can do this, you know?
So for the women that are out there that are listening, right, and they're in their peak prime, they want to start a business and they want to work with you. Where can people find you?
So I can be found on my two favorite socials are LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm on it very actively. And Instagram. So Sunny McGaw and The Sunny McGaw. And my website is thesunnymcgaw.com. And if you go there, you can find, I've got a ton of really cool freebies and a digital course as well.
Nice.
So you can find me there.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Ulysses.